Hey everybody, Gary here with Pow Music, and in this lesson we're going to go over how Jimmy Page used chromaticism, so parts of the chromatic scale, in so many great song riffs. So these are three of them. I've also heard him use this technique in solos as well to build tension. So we're going to go over the three examples and kind of what are the implications of the way he used it, and how could we take that tool and use it in our own playing, because ultimately that's the goal here. This is actually a companion song lesson to go along with my fretLIVE guitar theory course, where we start at the very beginning, which is actually the chromatic scale, all the possible notes, all 12 notes, how they're laid out on the fretboard, and then we get into harmony, scales, chords, chord progressions, soloing, and each step along the way there's song lessons, creative activities, challenges, and assignments. If you're coming here from the course, welcome. If you're interested in enrolling in the course, I'll put a link in the description. So this actually goes along with the first lesson, which is just on the chromatic scale, just to see how the chromatic scale is usually used in an actual song context. So it's not usually used the entire thing, all 12 notes, but a lot of times we use chunks of it to connect notes within the key. If you're coming to this lesson from the course, a lot of what I say in this theory analysis is going to be more relevant when you're way deeper in the course. So right now I just want you to hear what chromaticism sounds like and how it's out of the key. We're about to explore what it means to be in a key. So being this, the chromatic scale is the basis of all other scales. They come from it. It's all the possible notes we can play. I wanted you to hear that, and I want you to experiment with that. Also, if you want the tab to go along with all three of these riffs, that's available for Pow Music patrons, and the link is in the description. All right, let's get into it. So I started with Dazed and Confused because this is actually one of my favorite songs to do with beginners, because it develops this technique of 4, 3, 2, 1, fingers 4, 3, 2, 1 in a line. So it's like the spider fingers, but in action. And we just move chromatically, meaning one half step or one fret or one semitone at a time. So those are all synonyms. One fret distance, one semitone distance, one half step distance. Those all mean the same thing. Also, no matter what key you're in, there's never more than 2 notes at a time connected by half steps. So if you see 3 or more, that means it's chromatic. So the chord we're actually on is an E minor. And we've got 4 chord tones here. This one, this one, this one, and this one. And he connects all those using chromatics. So this is our root, this is our minor third, this is our 5th, this is our flat 7. And they're also right out of the E minor pentatonic scale, or the full E minor scale. The difference between pentatonic and the full diatonic minor scale is just a couple extra notes. So if you see here, if this is the full E minor scale, on these 2 strings, we're just adding in one chromatic note on this string, on the A string, and then one chromatic note on the E string. Cool, right? So it's really just used to connect these big chord tones in the riff. All right, so that's really it. So we're just playing that low E string, then to the minor third, walking it down to the root, then to the flat 7, walking it down to the 5th. And then as far as technique, you know, when you watch Jimmy live, he's always changing it up. But one thing he likes to do is add vibrato to those notes. So I use the fulcrum technique, and I just kind of go up and down on this axis. My fingers don't really move. It's more of my wrist. So that's kind of the first thing you could do. And then the other thing he does is bend up to this note from this one with the first finger. And then same thing there. All right, let's look at the second riff. So Stairway to Heaven. So for this song, I have a 2-part lesson series where we go really in depth on how to play it, and I'll link that in the description. But right now, let's just talk a little bit about the theory. The chromatic line is right? Da, 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 da. We're in the key of A minor. So he starts on the root, then he goes to the major 7, which is out of the key. That's one of the chromatic passing notes. Then to the flat 7, which is in the scale. Then to the 6, which is not in A minor. That would be if it was A Dorian mode, or we could think of it as borrowing from the relative major key of A major. But really, he's just accommodating this chromatic line. So what ends up happening is the chord there becomes a D major instead of a D minor to accommodate that note. Then down to this note, F, which is for the F major 7. That's in the key. So the chromatic notes we have here are the major 7 and the major 6, which becomes the major 3rd for the D major chord. Chord-wise, it's kind of like A minor to A minor major 9. So we play an A minor 9, which is a popular chord, but we add a major 7. Then C major. Then D major. But we don't play the root, we play that 3rd. So then to F major 7. Then E minor to A minor. So it's all about getting that downward motion. Very similar to, right? It's sometimes also referred to as a line cliche. I think in jazz people would call it that, where you just go down chromatically and you harmonize that chromatic descending line. Then the next one, Kashmir. So to play this one, we need dad-gad tuning, also known as D sus4 tuning. So we take our E and we're gonna go down a whole step. You're gonna wanna match it to your open D string and then use a tuner to fine tune it. A stays the same, D stays the same, G stays the same. B goes down to an A. And you could use your open A string to get there rough and then fine tune it. And then E goes down to a D. And then your whole guitar might kind of freak out a little bit, so you might want to just go back and see, like, some things might go sharp because you're taking tension off the neck. So it's going to pull back ever so slightly. And your other notes will go out just a tiny bit. What we have here, here's the line. That's the first line. We start with a D power chord, but instead of playing it here, he plays it like this. That's the thing about the guitar. You can go this way or this way. Same note. And you could sneak in the open D string. It doesn't really matter. If you can get it to ring out, good. You just want to mute these other strings. So the whole melody of this song is in D major pentatonic. So we're in D major, basically. So we start off with a D5, then sharp 5, that's out of the key. Then the interval of a major 6 in the key, flat 7. Ambiguous could be kind of like a D mixolydian. So that could be considered part of the key. And then an octave. So the only note really out is that sharp 5. So we're just going to want to mute out these two strings, the high E and the B, but we could hit the notes in the middle, the note in the middle, the open D. And then we're going to go down, up, down, down, up, down, then hit the bass string, the low D string in this case. Then move that finger up one. Now you might want to change your fingering. Here you do pinky first finger, index finger. Maybe here you do third finger, index finger. Counting 1, 2, 3, 4. So. I keep moving up my first finger, but shifting which finger plays the D. So then now second finger. Then I keep that one down, because now they're on the same fret. And then the octave, I'm using my first finger and pinky. Now all of them you play twice, down, up, down, 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 down, up, down. Then this one you play once, down, up, down. So, and then when you come back, you play this one once, so. Now the cool thing, what's going on here is this polyrhythm where the guitar riff is kind of in 3/4, but the drums are in 4/4. That's for a whole nother lesson. In this one, we're talking about the chromatics, but you know, Led Zeppelin had so much depth in terms of the sophistication of their harmonies and rhythms and stuff, while at the same time being such a blues band. That's what was so cool about Zeppelin. They were so earthy and bluesy, but had all this fantasy and then compositional sophistication at the same time. Then this part is even more chromatic. So the line on the G string is all that, almost the entire chromatic scale. So we start with this double stop, and then we hold the 12th fret on the high E, but then go down a fret on the G. Then we start over 2 frets down. Do the same thing. So this is going, and this is going. Then we do the same exact thing down 2 frets. And the rhythm is da 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 da. So same exact thing separated by the 8th fret, which we never touch. Then we move the whole thing down 1 fret and go. So we have 2 different lines. So this goes, while this goes. Put it together. Right? And I like to strum through all these notes because they sound good together. And it sounds good if you hit some of these open strings. So that gives you an idea of how you might want to use the chromatic scale or chromaticism in your songs, a la Jimmy Page. So with Dazed and Confused and Kashmir, they're very modal, right? Like this open D sus tuning, you could just mess around with the concept of tension and release. So when you're using chromatics, you're really just thinking about building tension and then releasing tension. So some of those scale tones in the key are going to be consonant, not feel tense at all, whereas the chromaticism is going to add some tension, right? So if you just strum this D sus4 chord, you could experiment with different notes. So if I play the scale, the major scale, that's the sound of the major scale. I'm gonna play Mixolydian because it seemed like they're in Mixolydian because this note was in the riff. They went, that's the flat 7, that note. So here's Mixolydian. Now I'm going to try just connecting some notes with chromaticism. Alright everybody, hope you enjoyed that lesson. As I said, if you want the tab or you just want to support POW Music, head over to patreon.com/POW Music. And I also want to give a special thank you to all of the POW Music patrons that make these lessons possible, and an extra special thank you to some of my higher level patrons, including Jeff Four, Daniel Laranz, Scott Martinez, Noah Brand, Chris Freeman, Jim McCall, George Ryan, Trampus Thompson, Michael Varney, Morton Rafas, Richard Kolbars, Arwin Guzen, Sean Ellis, Alan Leah, Joseph McCarthy, John Hartquist, Don Stringham, and Cam Chernachon. Thank you so much for your ongoing support, and thank you to all of the POW Music patrons that make this content possible. Happy playing, and I'll see you guys next time.